Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our show. We're Del and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul. We're invigorating talk all about your well-being. And we invite you to come join us today by going to our Facebook page if you want, Del and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul. Or you could give us a call. We're here at 323-284-7826 because we have a really lively discussion today. I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Debbie Carlin Boyle. I am certified as a personal trainer, a fitness instructor, and a nutrition and health coach. And sitting right next to me is my beautiful co-host.
Thank you so much. I am Del Lady Jones, and I'm a certified transformational coach and a 3 principles practitioner with a master's in spiritual psychology. And today we have a show that's right up my alley.
And not mine. So I'm so excited.
You're going to be learning a lot today.
Yes, exactly.
So today we are so thrilled to invite Caitriona Reed and Michele Benzamin-Miki. Did I say that correctly? Very wonderful. So,
welcome.
Thank you. So let me just give you a little bit of background on Caitriona and Michele. They are the co-founders of 5 Changes, which we're going to get into in a minute because I want to know what those 5 changes are, as well as the co-creators and stewards of the land at Manzanita Village Retreat, which is the beautiful retreat center you have, and we're going to also be talking about that. So they've trained and mentored creatives, evolutionary leaders, visionaries, entrepreneurs, and spiritual seekers for about 3 decades now. That's incredible. So the range of their experience, their lifelong commitment to learning and change now blends contemporary brain science with ancient mind tools, and that helps people have these deep internal personal changes and energetic and mindset changes. So we are so thrilled to have you join us today. So
welcome to our show. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what we usually do is we just, because you're both so fascinating, your backgrounds are so fascinating. So we're going to just take a little time and learn about where you came from, what got you here, and everything
one at
like
a time.
that.
And then we're going to figure out how you met. We're going to figure out how you met and you came together to do what you do
today.
So
Wonderful.
for our audience. So who would like to go first and tell us about,
I've been
Caitriona?
volunteering. I'll start with how we met. We met some 37 years ago when I was passing through Los Angeles on a holiday because I'm from the UK.
I hear that.
And I stayed.
Wow.
And at the time we met at a Buddhist retreat center, and we were kind of set up by the teacher who was a teacher and a friend of both of ours. And I'd already been immersed. We both immersed in Buddhist training and practice, and that remained. We continued doing that for many years, and in some ways still do in a modified form. So we teach the Dharma, we teach Zen, we teach mindfulness. We were teaching mindfulness before it got sort of dumbed down.
Before it's called mindfulness.
Yeah.
Well, it was called mindfulness,
Before
but
it became
we can talk about that later.
new
But
vogue,
there's some shift that's taken place and takes place whenever something becomes co-opted by that dominant culture. You could say I came to this country to change my sex because I am a woman of transgender experience. And I say that, it's like, what does that mean? It means I made big changes. But then who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
I had to face,
different kinds of changes
exactly.
we make.
Yeah.
For
So
different
I
reasons.
had to face, and I was teaching at the time. I was really 20 or more than 20 years ago, teaching my students about the importance of authenticity. And there I was sitting in my own little closet. Oops, this isn't working. And then she made me do it because it wasn't working.
Well, that's another story. But I was a catalyst.
You
basically. I
encouraged,
said you'd have to be happier than this. So.
You need to be authentic to who you are and live your truth.
So before we get into all of that, because this is we're going to have such a great show. But give us a little bit, like, what was life growing up in England like? Where did you go? Where did you grow up? And
Well, I grew up in the what we call the home counties. In the southeast of England, in a sort of suburban middle class purgatory.
yes,
Or at least it felt like that. I was sent to boarding school, so I went to what we kind of euphemistically call public school,
yes, exactly.
but is really private school. And
did you have siblings that were sent to boarding school as well?
I did, and it didn't work out very well. And
It normally doesn't.
no,
Yeah.
Those British boarding schools are
They
not.
don't.
no,
Okay.
it doesn't. It does.
You
for
guys
a
will
few.
have to enlighten us
It
at
does if
some
you're
other
on the
time.
track to join the government and
Oh,
run
oh.
the empire. But but that's another story.
Yeah.
So I grew up in that environment, always feeling an outsider, always feeling a rebel. And my interest from, I'm young enough to have or old enough to have scraped in at the tail end of hippiedom, beatnikdom, really.
Yeah.
So my interests were in art and poetry and the counterculture, and I first was exposed to Buddhism through that. And so I began living a self-reflective life, an examined life very early on. And none of what I was born into or lived into seemed to make much sense or feel very comfortable. So I felt,
At what age? How early did you feel
I felt like a misfit existentially and culturally, I would say, from about the age of 9, 10.
Okay.
And that was just being 9 and 10. And then by the age of 12,
Puberty.
13, I was reading the Beat Poets and finding all I could about John Coltrane and Jackson Pollock. So early on, and none of that fit into the world of late 60s UK, or at least the people I encountered were not part of that interest, that were not part of that focus.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. Well, we're going to come back to you because we're going to jump around. So let's have Michele. So Michele, I know that you have an interesting background too.
Yeah, I do. I have a lot of interests, so I think my background is interesting.
Well, that helps. That makes it.
Yeah, and also I come from sort of heritage of being half Japanese and half American, and coming from the times where the tensions were pretty tough between them, and my parents having to express that in a biracial marriage, and I sort of had to grow up fast.
And where did you grow up? What?
I grew up I started off in Japan. They couldn't really decide
You were
where
born in Japan.
they wanted to put us, to raise us. But my sister was born in Japan. I was born when we came back to the United States.
Oh, okay.
And we kept going back and forth and finally landed in the United States to, from 4 years old until now. So basically, I was raised here. But I always say that I think in Japanese and I speak in English.
I was just going to ask you. And so what was the main language in your home, having one parent of each?
Well, my mother actually was too tired to teach us anything in Japanese, and she really made that decision to help us not have problems in schools, to speak English only. So, to really assimilate. So I had a difficult time at the beginning, especially when I was 4 and I was speaking Japanese, apparently.
Oh, wow.
And being, thinking Japanese, and then all of a sudden I landed in East LA. I was like, wow.
Well, this ain't going to work out.
This is very interesting.
Yeah.
And it made me tough, actually. I really was a
bet.
very diverse and tough kid, and I had to grow up fast.
Is that when you got into the martial arts? Because I know you were pretty...
Yeah. I actually got into the spiritual arts, meditation first, and then I went and tried to seek out some form of Japanese art form, because, that was, my mother was a quiet figure in our family. My dad was dominant. And so I wanted to know more about her culture, even though I used the martial arts a lot just to get to school, just to, because I lived in neighborhoods where I had to protect myself, even at 9 years old. So I basically was a tough but compassionate kid. And so I wanted to learn it as an art form at the beginning. And then I learned a hard style of martial art, and it was really not my nature. I was a very gentle soul inside, even though I could really kick butt.
Great combination there.
But you could almost think of it as a dance more than the violent nature
totally.
of it.
I was dancing around troubled times.
Yes.
You could say that.
Yes.
Good.
Good. I'm glad you found that, because that's important.
So when did you first? So I know you said you met in a Buddhist center, which was here in California.
LA,
So when did you first start getting into Buddhism?
Well, oddly enough, I'm an artist. I'm a painter, and I was doing airbrushing, and my lungs were getting, full of lead painting and enamel and lacquers and stuff. And the doctors didn't know it at that time that was bad for you. Paint was bad for you. So they thought they would put me on Valium or something, because I was expressing anxiety around my lungs, and actually I was had some damage to my lungs. He also suggested that I either take Valium or go and do meditation. So this doctor actually set me on a path.
Wow.
Even though he was not aware of it, I
Yeah.
was not going to come back 15 years old to take Valium.
Yeah.
So I decided to take up meditation, and I was doing TM,
That's
Transcendental
fabulous. Yeah.
Meditation. And then I went over by accident from my martial arts studio. A friend of mine wanted to take yoga as a supplemental thing for fitness. And so we wound up in downtown Los Angeles at a Buddhist meditation center thinking it was a yoga studio. This monk opened the door in these robes, and I looked at him and I thought, how can you do yoga in that outfit? So I thought, well, let's try it out anyway. And I sat like a rock. I knew this in my body and my bones.
How
So-
serendipitous,
And how old
right?
were you
It was
again,
so
did you
meant to
say?
be.
You were just a teenager at the time.
Well,
15?
at that time, I was older by the time I started martial arts first, and so, and I was doing the TM, the Transcendental Meditation, and then I think it was late 70s. So I think I was probably in my late
20.
teens to 20. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's right before I met Caitriona, actually.
Yeah. And so was this the center that you found when you came
Yes.
to LA?
Yeah.
Bingo.
Oh,
That's it.
my God.
So you were there first, and then
Yeah.
Caitriona
and,
came in.
and the teaching monk
from-
was someone I'd met in Sri Lanka a couple of years before when I was traveling, and so he kind of set the groundwork.
He
Yeah.
set us up. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Naughty
what a
boy.
great.
He set you up to romantically
Yes.
to be a
I
couple.
think
Oh, okay,
so.
or to
Yeah.
spiritually get to know each
I
other.
think it was a little of
little of both?
everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
He,
Well,
he was,
clearly it
he
was
was mischievous.
Well, clearly
Yeah.
he had some
Yeah, he
good
had
premonitions,
alternative.
because I mean,
Yeah.
37 years later, and you are.
Wow.
So
And
far,
not
so
only
good.
together, but work together, and that's pretty incredible, and what you do, and so yes. So I'm going to share yours with me, because I
Oh.
accidentally didn't print mine out.
Oh, okay. That's
Sorry.
good. Whoop.
And I don't want to be
That's- we wanted
distracted
to
here.
sustain-
Yeah.
So now you're together, and what is it? What was the commonality besides Buddhism that really linked you guys to know that you had something that was not only
We're both artists.
okay?
Oh, yes.
And so you get each other in that way.
Yeah.
When you were saying
Yeah.
that you were back in England and it just didn't resonate
Right.
with where you were and what
Right.
other people around you were doing.
Right.
But Michele, you did.
We were both artists, and I clearly remember the first quote-unquote date that we had, and we both kind of brought our portfolios. I was like, Caitriona's photography
So
and
it
my
was basically,
art
can I show you my etchings?
Yeah, literally.
Yes.
But
That was funny.
Yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
God. So you met then, and how long did it take before you realized or expressed that you wanted to make the transition? How soon after that?
Well, on that first date, I explained to Michele that I had some ambivalence around my gender. So it was right up front, right there. It took another few years. So it was 20 plus years ago that I transitioned, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Because life is one big
Exactly.
continuum.
Transition every day.
But that I
Every time we put
officially
an outfit on,
Yeah.
we're transitioning into something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
It gives
changed
you a different
paperwork
feeling.
and changed anatomy and
Yeah.
did all the things that, at the time I felt necessary. I might rethink it now. Who knows? But because gender is a moving
Exactly, so
line.
fluid. It's like,
Yes.
why do we even have
Yeah.
to give it a name?
Exactly. Exactly.
So, so I'm just curious, Caitriona, where did that name come from?
It evolved, and it's interesting. One little story about that. When I came out to my mother, and I said to her, or she asked, "What do we call you now?" And I said, "Well, Caitriona." She said, "Well, that's funny. We were going to call you that had you been born a girl." And I said, "No,
weird.
never."
Did you ever see it written
No,
somewhere?
no, because
That's a very unusual name.
I
That's
said,
really
well, not so unusual in Scotland or Ireland. There are
okay.
variants of that,
Oh,
but still, it's unusual.
Yes.
I said, "No, you were going to call me Beverly."
Oh, thank goodness they didn't.
I'm
Sorry, no
glad.
offense to any Beverleys out there. I
And
love
she said,
Caitriona.
"No, I would not know. Why would I call you that? Where did you get that from?" But
Oh, my goodness.
anyway, so I don't remember where the name came from. It just
Well, what
emerged.
was your given name? Your name you were born with?
It was Christopher.
Christopher. Oh, well, it's
similar.
not so
See?
far off,
Keeping the same initials was, I suppose,
Yeah.
it was who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. But that is
Wonderful.
real. Another like serendipitous kind of the heavens coming together, the universe coming together and creating that name for you. That's what you were meant to be called.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Sorry, well, I was just going to say, so how did you, I mean, when you first met, obviously you were together. When did you first conceive of having this Manzanita
like
village?
yeah. Well, we'd both been looking. Michele had been to Hawaii to look for land. So we looked everywhere from.
Were you here in LA when you started
we were based
looking?
In
you
LA.
were based
we
in
lived
LA
in
because
Venice.
okay.
And we had
that's where
a
I
center.
live now.
Oh yeah, we had a center on Horizon Avenue.
Oh, okay.
And we were teaching classes.
That area.
And we were teaching retreats in Joshua Tree at a center that's still there, actually. Ruth Dennison's old center up in the high desert in Joshua Tree.
And you were teaching classes. What were these classes back then?
Meditation.
We were
Buddhist
pretty
principles.
formal. We were teaching Buddhist psychology and Vipassana in a fairly structured and fairly traditional Southeast Asian style with our own slant, because for all this time, we very much had a focus on socially engaged spiritual practice.
Yes.
My sense is,
Socially engaged spiritual practice. What does that mean?
well, you can't be aware of your breath fully without being aware of the devastation to the environment, to the rivers, to the forests.
Okay.
So it's connected.
To the cities.
So spiritual practice, as is often proposed, this is more of a current idea now than it was then, 30 years ago, is not a sedative. It's not a way of creating a dualism, disassociating yourself from the realities of living in the 21st century, where we're, catastrophe scale crisis. We sort of know that in our bones, and we find ways to resign to it, or to deny it, or to struggle against it,
Or numb out against it.
or to numb out against
Yes.
it. So how to create an authentic spirituality that doesn't overwhelm you with the responsibility of facing the world, but allows you at the same time to engage in an appropriate way so that it's integrated. Yeah.
So what's coming up for me as you're sharing this is some of the more earth-based religions and things like
Exactly.
that.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
so you incorporate that in your teachings.
Well, to some degree, we're careful because we're very sensitive to cultural appropriation.
Yes.
There's lots of it about.
Yes.
Where we live, we're very much connected to indigenous people who work there. We're actually bringing we're hosting a group of Colombian shamans who are coming, and what we're excited about is arranging this meeting between the local elders and
the
story holders.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Beautiful. Oh my
tell our
goodness.
audience where you are now.
Where is Manzanita?
Yeah, where Manzanita
We
is.
are situated in the northeast corner of San Diego County,
Okay.
in the rain shadow of Palomar Mountain before you descend to Borrego Springs.
Okay.
We're in a basin which was once the entryway from the Butterfield stage line. Would arrive in this green basin. It was much greener in the 1860s than it is now with climate change. And we are surrounded by numerous small groups of Indians now living on their own land.
Yes.
Cupeño, on the La Jolla Reservation, the Santa Isabel Reservation, the Mesa Grande. That we can see from our land, we can see like 4 or 5 Indian communities.
Wow.
And
I'm definitely coming.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm not sure if I can make the next retreat, but I'm signing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Sounds
you
amazing.
the day before,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about because we
Sure.
want our audience
Sure.
to hear all about
Well, we
it.
drove
Yeah.
there from there this morning, and getting up in the rain, and there's not a sound of traffic, or it feels like we come from another country.
Yeah.
It feels that
So
way.
how did you settle on that
Very
place?
cool that
You were
you
saying
found
that
that.
you were exploring like Hawaii and different places. So-
Well, yes, we had different communities forming around us as teachers, and each one of those communities knew that we had this this vision or goal, if you will, to have our own center, using other centers at that time. And we really wanted to take that plunge and make that commitment. But I guess it didn't really gestate until we found this place. It took us
Did you just
years,
see it
decades,
and
maybe.
just go, this is
Yes.
it? When
Yeah.
you saw
That's
it?
the
this one?
feeling.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
I had this feeling, and actually, oddly enough, I had a dream that I birthed a baby elephant, and this was the place. I feel like that was
This was,
fortuitous.
you birthed the
This, I
land,
birthed this
basically.
place, yeah.
So when you found the
Goodness.
land, were there structures on it, or did you have to build?
There
to
were
create the
structures. They were
retreat?
very dilapidated, and we didn't look at the structures when I first drove up there after Caitriona found the place with her mother, actually, and a real estate agent. I walked through the gate, And I literally felt like, okay, I've got to put on my big girl pants and and do this now.
Yeah.
I've been making all kinds of this is my vision, and now here it is.
Yeah.
Because this is the
hit you.
place.
Yeah.
It wasn't the buildings. I didn't look at the buildings.
Oh, no.
Okay.
If
But
I
there were
did, I
buildings
would have
on
been
the land.
scared.
There
Yeah.
were
It's a
buildings
good
on
thing
the
'cause
land.
it was
because
so
it was so
dilapidated.
dilapidated.
But
Yeah.
it's the setting.
Yeah,
It's
but
The
yeah,
feeling
you
I
just
got from the
knew
land,
the-
it just took me completely over. I could feel, the ancestors of the land, and I could feel their presence. All the people that lived
Wow.
there before us, and the indigenous people. So I just
knew
was
that it was right
perfect.
and
yeah.
made the decision.
Oh yeah.
right there that this
And
is
that
it.
was-
But you had already found it.
That was we moved in February of '93.
93.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. So it's quite a while. So so now you have a home basically. Well, you probably had to fix up the buildings and things, but
We're
now you had a
still
place
still
to be
fixing
able to. Well, that when you own
Yes, that's
land
true.
and structures, it's
Yeah.
never ending.
Endless.
So
It's
how many
always
acres
ongoing.
have you got there?
We have 20 acres.
Wow, 20 acres.
But
The
we say,
nature that must come through there.
well, yeah, because we're surrounded. We say, our backyard is 180,000
Yeah.
acres of Cleveland National Forest,
Wow.
and our front yard is about a couple of thousand acres of BLM public land.
Yeah.
So people drive a mile on grazing land down a dirt road.
To get to you.
Yeah, to get to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So,
Very cool.
there really is this sense of privacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And retreat
retreat.
from
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
world as we know
Exactly.
it.
You created a
Yeah.
really
Exactly.
great space.
Our neighbors are coyotes and bobcats
say,
and
yeah.
the rafters, the birds.
Now, are you off the grid, or do you have? What do
We
you
have electricity.
We have
Yeah.
It was there. In a way, I regret that it was there
Yeah.
because it would have been so much easier to just go solar.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're partly solar and partly not.
Yeah. And
But-
you're on well water. I read that you're
Yes.
on
You
well
have
water.
well
yeah,
water?
Oh,
we
yeah.
have good water from our own well.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, do you have animals on your not the wild animals, but any of your own animals?
Not at the
or-
moment.
Not at the moment.
No.
No.
Well,
And
we're
do the-
vegan, so
Okay,
we
great.
don't have any.
Need for
Yeah.
eggs
Yeah.
or anything like that.
Oh no, we don't. Yeah,
Or
we don't
milk.
have farm.
And
yeah.
if you encountered, I lived in the canyon for a long time, but I was much more closer to to traffic and civilization. And do you encounter wildlife
All the time.
Oh,
but,
yes.
but in a negative way? Like, well, you don't have animals, so no one's killing your animal. Nothing's killing or
Yeah, the
taking
rodents are
over you.
annoying.
And
The
what about,
rodents are-
do you grow
Are they mountain
fruits
lions?
and vegetables and things like that on your land? And are they able to
We
stay?
have. It's been a struggle. Actually.
Okay, that's why I'm
Yeah, it's
asking
been a
because I know
Yeah.
what this is like.
It's a
I've lived
competition
in-
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
You put it
Yeah.
up, and they're like, "Oh, thank you
we
very much."
feed, we feed the ground squirrels.
We're actually in the
Yeah.
process right now of growing in a way, both in large containers and in hanging
Oh,
containers,
those are great. I see.
that
Yeah.
will minimize that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those pod things.
Yeah,
are great.
exactly.
Which
Yeah.
people do in big cities
Yeah.
Right,
because
yeah.
it's
Exactly.
one
It's
way to
easy,
be able
yeah.
to grow.
That's
So you
wonderful.
must go when you go to the market. It's you think about a period of time, especially when you're doing
Yes,
your
we do.
retreats. So on your retreats, which I guess we can dig into, but so food wise, do you have chefs that come in, or do you? Everybody cooks themselves. You buy.
Well, no, we do have, finally, we have people coming in and out throughout our 25 years there cooking, and nobody's really ever been a stable cook for the whole 25 years. And
Yeah.
even
But
we've
different.
prided ourselves on cooking and teaching, which
yeah,
is
that's why I'm asking.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't do that anymore. We have somebody now who we really like, and she likes us, and she cooks. She listens to the way we want to feed people, and she has her own ideas. So it's a perfect marriage.
I saw the
wonderful.
pictures on the website.
Yeah.
The food looks
Oh,
glorious.
it's beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
right up my alley.
Yeah.
So I just, it looks amazing.
amazing.
All vegan
So-
now, so we're happy about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it tastes good too, because a lot of people have some misconceptions probably about a plant-based diet. It can be really interesting and much more
absolutely.
interesting than other diets.
That's right.
I've found.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well,
having
they-
to cook.
Yeah, I think there was a thing back to the 70s or 80s where it had to be tofu and seitan if you were vegan. Or,
Right.
It's not that anymore.
It's not that
No.
anymore.
So
I mean,
many.
it's so...
Yeah, it's whatever you can invent. It's-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so much better. So talk about about the philosophy behind? I mean, how would you describe? What is the
Yes.
metaphor you would use to describe
your work.
the work that you do?
Well, you say the metaphor, and then I'm going to
I'll
add
say
to that.
I'll say a metaphor
Yeah.
because
Okay.
I think it's a metaphor that we both resonate with. It's the metaphor of, not knowing your essential purpose. You have value inside of what you do and yourself, and then you go on these journeys to do something else and find purpose somewhere else. So you go on a long journey away from what you know, what you're grounded in, what your soul, it knows so well. And then you go on this long, extravagant journey doing things and thinking that you should be doing this and that and all kinds
Like
of things.
eat,
and
pray, love.
Yeah. And then you come back have been wiser, of course, and knowing that wasn't a waste of time, of course. It just made you more firmly standing on the ground that you already know. So you
Right.
come
Yeah.
back to what you already know, where your heart already is, and you say that's a value. So I think
it's
that's
like-
a metaphor.
it's
But
like-
it becomes present. It
Yes.
becomes you actually see it and feel it, but it's always been there. But you never
Exactly.
tapped
It's
in.
like the sacred journey.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
those lines
Sacred
from
journey.
Eliot's Wasteland, to come back to the place where you started and to know that place as if for the first time.
Do you
Exactly.
So it's
think
the-
that's a cultural thing, though, in America? That well, could be anywhere, Western civilization, but that the answers are outsiders. We
Yes.
have to keep
It is,
seeking.
yes.
And
It's
we
very
just-
North American.
It is, and we just have to keep
The Wild
pointing-
West, push
well,
forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Move on.
And goal and
Yeah,
achieve
yeah.
and all this stuff, as opposed to, like you say,
Yeah,
it's
And
that's-
all-
tangible results.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
And
how
an
do we-
avoidance of dwelling with oneself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hence
Just
the
gonna say
epidemic
that.
of loneliness.
Exactly.
Because people
Yeah.
don't know how to talk to
That's
themselves,
what I was
basically.
just
Or
going to say.
enjoy
So
their own
how
company.
How do you get to those people? How do you help
By
them?
appearing on your show.
Well,
Yes,
okay,
there we
yeah,
go.
that's because
Right.
it's one of those things where it's there. They just don't
People
realize
find
what
us.
it is that's
Yeah.
causing them to knock their heads against a wall and not be able
There's one thing I want
to
to add
tap in.
to Michelle's answer around. It's more than
Metaphor.
the metaphor. It's the one sentence, well, actually three little sentences answer to what you do. It's based on a simple, whether it's Buddhist or it's 20th century Alfred North Whitehead, David Hume. Everything's connected. Everything is in some way aware, awake, conscious, let's say, and everything matters.
Yes.
So everything
Beautiful.
connected, everything matters. And everything is something you can be in relationship with, everything. And so often we deny those possible relationships for some imagined relationship to a God, a teacher, a partner, a
What
life
we
partner,
think it should look
a
like.
career, and rather than to the world as it spreads itself out so
Yes.
deliciously and abundantly in front of us every moment.
Yeah.
Tap
And so
into
it's,
that
so
is-
it's that.
Yeah.
You have
Beautiful.
a phrase, psycho magic.
Yes.
What is that exactly? Is that kind of what we're talking about
Yeah.
right
Yes,
now?
it is.
Okay.
It means
All
stop
right.
it, cut it out,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
We'll
Stop
break
it.
that. We'll break it. We'll break the mirror. We'll break the pattern.
Yeah, we
Okay,
break
that's
the
what
pattern.
that's what came up for
Yeah.
me as you were saying this,
Yeah.
because I remember reading.
Yeah, well, break.
Psychomagic.
It's like breaking that restriction or that prison that you're in, and
Break the
coming out.
mold.
Break the mold. Break whatever it is. The identity that you think you need to have in the social world, in the world that you present to people outside, and then really what they really want to see is you. They want to see you in your beauty and your rawness. And we're getting more and more to that right now. People are talking about authenticity. They're talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
coming back to less of the image makers and more of who you are and showing that. And people
the
want to hear it.
Image
Yeah.
makers are, big corporations are hiring people like you to go in and work with their employees and take
Exactly.
them, even if it's just a day rather than, go away for a retreat.
But
But
it's
to
a-
tap
From your
into
mouth
that.
to
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you hear me, guys,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But it is,
Hear
no,
her.
we've had people on the
Yeah.
show that are making differences in that way because,
Because
people get so caught up on what they,
Right.
with the internet and social media, what it is today, but what they think they should be, or where they, or so concerned about what people think they should be, and it's just not authentic to who they are, to
Yeah.
what they really
Well,
are.
it's like the social pressures and things,
Yes.
and the self-rejection. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really
We've done
for
a
me.
lot
It's
of
all
shows
about,
about
just
that,
going
yeah.
back inside and embracing the
Exactly.
totality of who you are,
Exactly.
Not enough.
warts and all.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's just, it's
Yes.
beautiful. It's
Exactly.
raw, it's
Yeah.
real. I
Yeah.
mean, we all have it. We're all
Right.
sort of, doing the smoke and mirrors mirrors dance of like, I'm not like that. And all it does is lead to self-rejection.
Right.
So so we touched on the breaking the mirror. Now that's your up and coming retreat. So let's give a little more detail about what that's going to be.
And we want to talk about the 5 changes
Yes,
too.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, 5 changes, I never remember what they are.
Oh, wait.
wait. We can put that on hold just for a minute. We were going to talk about the retreat first, just a little bit.
Yeah.
So
where did you come up with that name, breaking the mirror?
wow.
It was the title of a book of poems that I'm particularly fond of by a Japanese poet, Nana Sakaki. But more specifically than that, we look in the mirror and we invent ourselves.
Yes.
And we look through lenses that allow us to see ourselves in ways that are very
Again, comparing
one-sided.
ourselves to what we think we're supposed to be or what we should look like.
Or we imagine certain things or conceive of certain things or ourselves in terms of what we can and cannot do.
Sure.
All a reflection of past experience and expectations and so forth. Break it.
Yeah,
Just
break it.
Break it.
Just break
We
that
actually
mirror.
provide, on this particular retreat, which we've done once before.
We provide mirrors.
We provide mirrors that get broken on the
Oh,
last
they do
day.
get broken.
Yes.
Broken on the last
Great,
day.
because
Okay.
that's a superstition.
I was
That's
just
a
going to say,
superstition.
there's superstition about
Exactly.
bad luck and mirrors.
Ooh,
And
it's
stuff.
good luck.
It is
good luck.
It's good luck.
We're creating
we're
a
gonna
new
break one.
superstition.
I love this.
Good.
Because it's not an accident.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Breaking a mirror by accident might be bad luck, but breaking a mirror on purpose is very
It's
Okay, because you're
different.
breaking through.
Because I love
It's
that.
a
It's
good
like
metaphor.
breaking
An
through
excellent
that.
metaphor.
That habitual thinking, that self-limiting thing
Yeah.
that's been going around and around in our heads for so many years, and not questioning it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see yourself. We have so many mirrors in the world. It's hard to see yourself from the inside without looking and checking a mirror. It's really hard to see, do I like myself from the inside?
So much
and
cloud
then,
in it.
Yeah, it's just so muddled in there.
It's the whole need to be skinny and to be enough of something.
It's
Be skinny
dysphoria
enough
on
to
many
have the right
levels.
chin, the right eyes,
And
the perfect
especially
structure.
now with this divisiveness in the political sphere, we're looking for people who, whether it's in the political sphere or in the sphere of economics or gender or race or education or all the various markers by which we distinguish ourselves from the feared other. We're looking for something, someone, some group of people that somehow mirror us. And it simply reinforces the blindness that comes along with that
To always be
fear.
looking. Always.
Fear, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
And there's good reason for fear, but we don't have to.
So
Well, we
how-
live. So, I mean, you say there's good reason for fear, but what is the percentage of fear actually being real? Is so minuscule.
Exactly.
It's totally
I mean,
minuscule. Yeah.
Whereas we live so much of our life in
Yeah.
this, as you said, either reflecting on the past or worry about the future, and we experience
Right.
fear and worry, and it's
Instead of
just
the
not
here and
happening
now,
in the
it's
present
breaking through.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So-
the thing also too with the retreat
Yeah, I was
is
just gonna
a
ask.
lot of it is around what we've bought into, our loyalties around our family history, if you will. So we address some of that. A lot of what we do sometimes comes out as fear is our loyalty to our family fears, and that have been passed down through generations.
Exactly.
And we say yes to them, even though inside of us our soul is aching to say no, that I want a different life. I don't want to fear these people, or I don't want to fear this, or whatever. And so much
Right.
of it is
Well,
caught up in these
it's-
knots.
There's change that's involved, which is
Yes.
always fearful. There's
Right,
always the
right.
fear of the unknown.
Right.
Exactly.
And and then there's going deeper, which is also a fear, because what could happen, what might come out that you
like if I
would
don't
have to
have those
purge,
structures of
you
fear,
know? Yeah.
what would my life look like if I didn't have that fear?
Go ahead.
Say a couple of things.
Yeah.
One of which just went straight out of my mind.
No, I'm sorry.
No, it
back,
came back.
Okay,
It
good,
came back.
good, good.
Part of all of this is also that the retreat involves going into deep silence.
Yes.
So part of it, we're utilizing our core skills as Zen teachers to create that space of active listening, deep silence.
Yes.
And the second thing is, if I can say, that there's a discount for this retreat that goes away today.
Oh,
Yes,
great.
that's
So
right.
I want to say, if
Okay,
you miss
so
the
now the
discount,
logistics
can
of
I
it.
just say this? That there's a coupon code
Yeah.
that'll
Okay.
get you the discount, 50% off.
Say just
Fabulous.
while we're talking
Yeah.
about it, say your website. And
Well,
Jarvis, you can
it's
put it up.
5changes.com.
Okay.
And then they go there to the calendar section on the drop-down menu.
Okay. So today is the day.
And
they
then
need to-
and then if people miss it because they might be listening to this after
After.
today,
Sure, yeah.
there's a coupon code which is June, uppercase June, numbers 50, June 50, and that gives you a 50% discount.
And we'll
So
put that on our on our Facebook
Sure.
page,
so people can
Sure.
see.
So when they're watching the show,
Tell us
back.
the date right now
June-
and how long.
Oh, it's
How many-
only a weekend. It's shorter than
okay,
usual because
okay.
it's June 1st to
First.
June 3rd.
Okay, so
3
the
days.
weekend. So it's a Friday,
days.
Saturday, Sunday.
Friday midday through Sunday midday. It's 48 hours.
And in that period of time, I mean, don't have to get into detail, but what can a participant expect? We just talked about two things: the silence. What else? What else can
Two things.
they?
Yeah.
They will have tools they'll carry with them, which they can use or not.
Okay.
Easy tools. Not like you've got to meditate for 40 minutes every day.
No.
Yeah.
They can do that, but it's
Simpler than
much,
that.
much simpler.
Yeah.
And a reaffirmation of their capacity to transform their perception of themselves and the world they live in.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And those tools to keep
Yeah, exactly.
reaffirming that when you get back out
Oh,
into the
yes.
world, into
Exactly.
your
Definitely.
world.
In
Okay.
fact, the real retreat starts after you leave the place.
Yeah, I
this
love
is
that.
what
Okay.
is going to. They're going to see that.
And we hope it's also a revisitation to what is deeply known already. One of the premises of the 5 changes, the first really is that we are not broken. You're not broken.
Exactly.
And once that's understood, that gives a whole lot of room to have that conversation
Yeah.
with oneself, with one's soul.
Absolutely. We are just absolutely perfect just as we are.
Yeah.
If we only just
Yeah.
could do that journey back inside
Yeah.
to reclaim ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All that
Yeah.
self-rejection.
It's a big
is
reason why
what's-
we do this show. This comes up a
Yeah.
lot
Oh, yeah,
and
right.
with different coaches in different ways. But we
Right.
do that just to remind people
Right.
that they are perfect. And if you need
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
discovering that,
Yeah.
that's what this is about.
And it's
that's
not
what
that
we
hard.
try to bring
It's
It's
not
not
that
hard.
we make it
No.
hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thinking there's
Exactly.
something out there that we need to achieve to
Exactly.
find that place inside.
Yeah.
And also, like you, I just want to go back to the thing that you were mentioning about the multi-generational patterns that are passed down.
Oh, yes.
And the fear sometimes people have of losing their family if they were to go against
Exactly.
those ideals.
Those loyalties and
Exactly.
ideals.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, most of that family is passed on. So,
Yes, exactly.
and at that point, you would
Creating
think
a
that
new-
their souls are at some kind of resting place with this, and then you can actually help them by stopping that.
Stopping exactly.
and
Yes.
turning your life
Changing
around and
patterns.
changing that
Yeah.
pattern.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
stop it. And that's part of the work that we do on the retreat as well. We,
And do
we
you have-
actually do deep time work
Yeah.
to address some of those ancestral loyalties and to put them in their proper place and receive only the love that those generations actually wanted to have when you were born.
But didn't have the
didn't.
tools or
They gave
skills
you
or the know-how.
a weird
to-
kind of
yeah.
love.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So that brings
so
me to
limited.
so say somebody in the retreat has that breakthrough and they really, I'm an extreme example, but I do remember watching this interview with this young boy that had been brought up in, and his family were part of the clan and his loyalty, and the whole family would reject him, and he basically came out and had the courage to say, this is so wrong. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. So say there was somebody that had something quite extreme like that, where a lot of their family would reject them if they didn't continue with their ideals. Do you have ongoing support? Say somebody has a breakthrough in the weekend. I know you do coaching. So how does that look?
There is, we also have, along with our retreats, we have mentoring programs that we do. Sometimes the people want a quicker, because of time span, 3 months, or just coming for a weekend. We do intensive mentoring to address some of that, or we have a 6 month to a year program where we actually help somebody. Like there's a joke about the therapist who got his client to stop thinking he was a kernel of corn, and they were walking in the countryside, and all of a sudden and they were friends, and all of a sudden his former client ran down the road, and he ran after him, and he goes, when he caught up to him, he goes, "What was that about?" He goes, "Well, I know I'm no longer Colonel Corn, but those chickens didn't." And so, it's like, we need support.
Right.
Yeah, we all have
Even
those
though we
blind
have-
spots.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
you know what? We're all coaches, and
So,
we
yeah.
all do. I run a 6-month program that people continue on
Right.
because you need support to
Exactly.
break those habits,
Yeah.
those patterns,
Yeah.
those things
Yeah.
that you
And
came
the
to us in the first place
environments
for.
that you're in
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
Even though
Exactly.
you've changed, the environment hasn't changed.
Exactly.
That's
So
right.
you need the support.
You need to
Yeah.
get ongoing because it's so difficult. You're up against those
Yes.
obstacles every single day.
Yeah.
You know,
Another piece of this that pops into my mind as we're speaking about this is one of the reasons we're on the land there is that we wanted to make a deliberate statement, not certainly back in the day, not so commonly made by people like us, to really evoke the ancestors, the ancestors of the land, the ancestors of our blood, the cultural and spiritual ancestors that we share in many ways, or we can share. And so in some ways that support for the breakdown, the breakthrough, comes from reframing your understanding of the universe, of the world, to recognize that you really are not alone. That our ancestors stand with us, and that's not something that's held in the paradigm of the common culture.
Yeah, not in Western culture. I used to be heavily involved in the Lakota,
Right.
and I mean the
So
ancestors
exactly.
are so important, and basically we're all energy, we're all
Yes,
connected.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Nobody's gone
But
anywhere.
again,
Everything's connected.
you
Everything's
got
alive.
to take
Exactly.
people sort of out of that space, that fast track, to point that out
Right.
and
Yes.
and remind them,
Yeah.
and then
Exactly.
show them how
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
manifest it. You know,
I mean,
that,
oddly
the
enough,
meaning of it.
Yeah, oddly
So-
enough, the universe is really actually a creative and resourceful place, and it's just rooting for us. Basically, we're the ones with the blinders on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we've created that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it just the need for wealth and the need to keep up with the Joneses, and you know, I mean, I see what we've done
tiring.
over the years
Yes, exactly.
to our kids just to get them into now, you know,
Right.
private school, let alone college. The competition and the thing you have to be. The pressure on not just the kids themselves, but the families to feel like, well, my kid did, you know, it's really tough. And then those kids think that's where, well, this is what I was trained to be, so that's where I have to be, and they don't ever dig deep enough into themselves to
think
where
it's
what
changing.
truly.
It is changing.
Yes, there is a
Yeah.
cultural shift.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
feel
I-
that,
I
but
always remember
it's
the
not fast. It's
Yeah.
not
No,
happening
never.
fast.
No.
But
Yeah.
it depends who you hang out with as
Right.
well, because
It's-
I
yeah,
know
well,
for
you're
sure
in-
with my children, I was like, my mother actually gave me the book, the Kahil Gibran, you know, that we're just the bow and they're the arrows, and we
Right.
let them go. And
Right.
so I got that from her, like, live your own life. So with my children, it was the same thing. It's like, I've had my life. This is your life.
Right.
What do you want? What, you know, go
Yes.
inside. And so I've had pretty liberal upbringing.
Yeah,
based
I know,
on my
and your
upbringing.
kids are. I mean, it's not that my kids did too, but there was a. I mean, they went to private, all-girl Catholic schools where everybody was,
There's a
you know,
peer pressure.
5.0, and they were all going to Ivy League, getting into Ivy Leagues, and I had artsy kids. You know, they were dancers, they were actresses, they had their own sense of self that they felt not enough for, and you know, just in America and in large cities and society itself. But this, I mean, if we go back to when we were young and the pressure that we had to get in college then, we had more opportunities,
Oh, yeah.
I think, to
Yes.
follow our artistic true selves than we do now. The pressure, the money people are spending, and all of
It
that
is,
is
yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So having you guys do what you do, bring it all back, the shift that's happening is, I think, you know, well needed and,
It is.
and incredible.
But I want to get to, we've got a couple more things I really want to talk to you about because we're running out of time here. So one of the things is, how would you describe what you do, the work you do, as opposed to conventional therapy? I mean, give us a little nutshell, because I think sometimes therapy, you just keep going around and around.
What we do, what comes to mind right away is we speak to well, we don't speak directly to your thinking rational mind. We go a little deeper to some place inside of you that knows already and is more open. We call that the subconscious or unconscious, or there are words for it.
Yeah.
But we actually
Divine intelligence, I
speak-
call it divine wisdom.
We speak to that part rather than we're within a lot of conventional therapies. They don't access that part
Exactly.
through that modality. So we basically address that, and that's where the change happens. That's where you can restructure everything. You can change patterns of a lifetime.
Exactly.
And our background is
Yeah.
in clinical hypnotherapy and neurolinguistics.
Yeah.
okay.
So it's the opposite of talk therapy,
Yeah.
actually. And
Yeah.
and you know what we do, and we teach people to use. Actually, we teach therapists how to use these tools, and
Yeah.
it's scary how quickly it's like they fire us very quickly because
They don't want you to be.
Yeah.
Well, because you're the shortcut. I mean,
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
do
Put
can
them out
make
of work.
profound change.
Yeah.
And a lot of therapy,
Yeah.
and I've been in therapy for many years myself, and I studied therapy. I mean, I was a spiritual
Right.
psychology major. But some of these things that we do where we bypass the brain and just go straight for that sort of inner wisdom, that intuition guidance, it can happen like that.
And
It
even
happens like
Freud,
that,
even
yeah.
Freud acknowledged that.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
The only way that change happens is through the unconscious, and
Yeah.
that no amount of cognitive therapy. I mean, there's place for that.
Yeah.
There's always
There's
a place for everything.
Yeah.
But so even Freud,
Yeah.
the originator of much of this mischief, would acknowledge that it's only through really activating the unconscious capacity that we have for transformation.
And the funny thing is a lot of people come when they're at that edge, when they
Yeah.
want to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is when they come to this kind of work where you can change
Tap
things
into
Yeah.
it
really
in a
quickly.
much quicker
However, we would suggest that people don't get to the end of their rope before they come and
Yeah,
do
exactly.
this. That they
Yeah.
can do it as a preventative means, as a means of actually, instead of running away from your pain, by going towards something that you love and want and want to do in your life. So they can use this modality in that respect rather than always coming from pain.
It's a shift from the why question to the how question.
Yeah.
And why is very interesting
Yeah.
and valuable, and very often doesn't address the issue. The how do I address this issue is really the key question.
Yeah, exactly.
In the time we have left, can we talk about the 5 changes in terms of?
Let's see if we remember.
Yeah,
them.
if you, just to give our audience a quick sneak peek
Well,
into
well,
that, and then we'll
Here's-
talk again about.
I'll say this. What are the 5 changes? There are 5 things you need to change, but probably we can get away with just changing one of them, because the rest will just like dominoes fall. And the first one is
Okay.
to realize you're not broken.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
And you're not perfect.
Okay.
Yes.
Exactly.
And you're not
then
done.
all
And you're
the
not
others
done.
fall into
Yeah.
place. Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Good.
Yeah.
So, tell us more. Again, I'm sorry. I'm checking here. There was something I wanted to. So, what is your intention for the people that come and work with you? And let's just like sum that up, and then share your website again and the dates and times and things. So, what is your intention?
The intention is to really empower them. Basically, they can constantly come back, but for their pleasure and enjoyment and their expansion and growth, that they really can take hold of their lives when they leave us in that respect, and know that they have, because they're not broken, they have the tools inside of them, and we have made them visible for them so that they can use them every
You
day.
have some great testimonials on your website,
yeah.
by the way, for
Thanks.
people that you have transformed in that way.
I like to
So-
say that we ran out of interesting people to have dinner with, so we went
Yes,
to
exactly.
create a few more. And how we do that is simple. It's not original, but it's really to move people from being a victim to being
Absolutely.
at cause,
Yeah.
to being at choice,
Yeah.
to being
Yeah.
to living their life at choice. It's that shift.
Absolutely.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And so, and so, people, do they see a shift in relationships?
Yes.
Yes.
In financial
Yes.
abundance,
Yes.
in
Yes.
career change,
Yes.
in
All
artistic
of that.
awakening,
Yes.
They won.
Yeah.
all of those things.
Yeah.
They're
Whatever
connected.
value they have.
Yeah.
Connected.
Whatever's
So
important
you
to
help them
they
tap
will
into
shift
their
that.
value
Yes.
that they think they're not good enough to tap into.
And it's not just about more.
Yeah.
Because so
No,
often in our
exactly.
culture, it's like more money
No.
or more relationships.
no,
or-
Not about
but it's
more.
about
It's about the
breaking
quality.
free.
the resonance, the balance, the resonance,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the appropriate, what's appropriate at that place in that person's life.
Exactly.
How do you
somebody
incorporate
not want to go
art?
there?
Well, do you because I know you do poetry and visual arts. Do you incorporate that into the workshops as well?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, and sometimes I literally will have them paint their ways out of their boxes. So they will do a free kind of play and painting and drawing themselves out, if you will, and drawing what they want to see, and and
Do you do
creating
role
that.
playing, acting too? Because you both have acting backgrounds.
We do in a specific way, and it's a very dynamic way, and it's a very proactive way, and it's very unexpected for most people. So they become their true selves in
Systems
acting.
constellation work, family constellation
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
or a variant of that.
A variant
Okay.
of that. So we do deep time work in people's family systems.
And we've done role play in
Yeah.
other ways too.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I asked.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you must see a profound shift from the beginning of the retreat and your participants and the end and what.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it must be really hard for them to leave you, because almost the fear that they're just going to snap back.
Well, in some ways, we used to teach more like that. Like it was a big
Yeah.
immersion experience.
Yeah.
Less and less am I interested in the experience,
Yeah.
the peak experience.
Yeah.
Because peak experience isn't that interesting. It's so show me now how that impacts your life.
Exactly.
So sure, people have amazing experiences. And it seems to play out. I'm more interested in how people just float back into their life seamlessly,
Exactly.
without it being
Okay.
wow,
Yeah.
this is culture
Well,
shock.
Well,
Good.
exactly, because
Wow,
that's
I
like
hope
somebody
you
once said to me,
Yeah.
that's like, Burning Man. The feeling lasts for 2 weeks, and then you go back to sort of flipping people off in traffic.
Yeah.
You really want to
Exactly.
give somebody
Yeah.
something that they can
Yeah.
take with them
Yeah.
that isn't one of those like overstimulating
Exactly.
experiences,
Right. Exactly.
but that subtle thing that they carry with them as they move forward in their life.
And so much of that is developing that sense of, this is coming from me, this is mine, and this is my
Yeah.
trophy experience. And therefore, when I come out into the real world, then everybody's against that. Or, you have this trouble then, this kind of split.
Yeah. And it always has to be, like you say, it always has to be an internal
It needs
experience.
to
It
be
has to come
connected.
from themselves, not something that you provide, you give them. If they don't feel it for themselves, then
Right.
it's that's your experience, not
Then they
theirs.
can spread the love.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the kind of
that's-
person we want to put out,
Exactly.
is they are whole enough to be able to give and be generous
Yeah.
after the retreat, rather than feeling a victim after the retreat.
Sure.
Oh,
Well, it's
I'm
true,
sure
but when
that's
you
never
love
the case.
yourself, I mean, you're so much easier with everybody around you. You're
Exactly.
you just
Yeah.
emanate that love
Give
and
back.
acceptance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really funny when you start to think about what it is that you have the gift to help others with. And it's so seamless for when you get to a certain point. But
Yes.
sometimes someone, a coach or a retreat, something like this, needs to tap into that
Yeah.
to bring it out, so you're able to go share. Because that's really
Yeah.
what it's all about.
It is, yeah.
Is that we find it for ourselves and then we impart it to
Exactly.
others. So,
So
in
again,
the few minutes,
yes, just a few minutes. Let's again just give you website,
Yes, exactly.
the dates,
And we're going to end with words of wisdom after we get let's get the logistics out of the retreat and how people can find you.
So 5 changes, FIVECHANGES, all spelled out as one word, .com. And from the menus there, you can find out about several things, including on the calendar, the retreat upcoming, June 1st to June 3rd, and some other things later in the year. We're going to be posting some more events.
and you also have your own podcasts now, which
We
are
do.
fascinating.
The
I've been
world
listening
we
to
long
those.
for.
Yeah.
So our tagline is the world we long for.
Yeah. I
And
love
no
that.
one ever asked me what is that, because we all seem to know.
Exactly.
However many variations there might be, we all are longing
Yeah.
for something different
Yeah.
in some way. From
Gentle,
this.
loving, and
Yeah.
accepting.
So I think you guys are due for a guest slot on the
Yes.
podcast.
Oh, great! That would be
Yeah, and
great.
it's very different, because it's the opposite of what you do. It's like, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
So it's that core question. So
Yeah.
the podcast is there. We're only about 10 episodes into it.
Yeah, but they're great.
Okay.
They're
Yeah.
fascinating. And you also have a workbook that people can.
Yeah, I was just
We
going to say
do.
you have a book
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
access on your website,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
and that's
Yes.
an interactive workbook, is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a workbook. It's an audiobook version, and there are, I think, 3 exercises there, and they'll get more in due time. We
Yeah.
send out more,
So, about how many times a year do you do these retreats?
3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah.
Okay, great.
And then when you said you have other little things besides the retreats that are they one-day things? Are they online workshops?
We're doing
or
something online
teleconferences?
soon, which
Yes.
we did a
A
2-week
training.
certification training in hypnosis and NLP, which we're
Oh,
not
okay.
doing anymore. We're in the process of recreating that, and it will be partly
What's NLP?
Neuro-linguistic programming,
Okay.
applied
Yes.
brain science.
Okay.
Migrants.
I know it's on your website.
So it's the sort of lightning fast tools that we were talking about earlier that really do affect very rapid change. We'll be doing it partly online and partly as a weekend.
Yes.
Okay.
So it'll be stretched out. It will be more than neurolinguistics. It will.
It'll be
it'll-
so much more comprehensive,
Yeah. Yeah.
foundational and spiritual and everything
Wow.
that we've
Okay.
brought to the table.
And that's where it's going to bring us to our final thoughts and
Yeah.
words of
Words of
wisdom
wisdom
from
for our
each of you,
audience.
for our audience. If you
Wow, words of wisdom. I can only say something that I need to hear myself all the time, and that is, you are loved. The universe is not against you, and you really are a wealth, a resource of creativity. So why not share that and change things if they're not that way right now? Like, this is the time to do it. These are the times.
Magic. Love it.
Beautiful. Caitriona?
This pops into my mind. I want to quote the poet John Keats, who said, "I am certain only of the truth of the imagination and of the holiness of the heart's affections."
Beautiful.
Wow, that
Love
is
that.
beautiful.
That
Yeah.
says it.
That says it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
we're going to ask our audience, go to our Facebook page and make a comment, ask a question. We can do anything post-show because this is a fabulous show, and we're there for you. We want to help you tap into
and
this.
Also,
Go ahead.
Also, just to, we'll be posting the link you said
Yes,
to
the code.
the code
code
that
for
gives
the
you
discount.
50% off,
Yes.
which is great.
Thank you.
We'll have that on the Facebook page and with a link to the show. I mean, in fact, the show right now is you can access it again
It's on our Facebook page.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
down Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul.
Great.
So
Okay.
we want to thank you
Yeah.
for
Thank
your
you.
time
Oh,
and
thank
coming all this
you.
way. It's
Yeah.
raining
I know,
in
that was a
LA
long
today,
drive.
so
Thank
you
you.
had
Our
to
pleasure, all
put
our
up with
pleasure.
weather, and really the pleasure is all ours.
Yes,
This is what
absolutely.
we're all about, and we thank you so much.
Thank
All
you.
right, and we
Thank
are
you.
going to say goodbye. We're going to be
Yes.
here next week,
Yeah.
and we'll see you guys then. It's Down Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul. Thank you.
Thank you. Have
everybody.
a wonderful
Bye.
week. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye-bye.